Hey everyone, it's Marvin. Thanks so much for listening to Books and Boba. I just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that Books and Boba just launched our Patreon to help support our future endeavors. Rira and I have been running Books and Boba for the last 6.5 years, and we've always talked about wanting to do more, including expanding our content offerings, being able to go to book events and do more coverage. And so to help us get closer to those ambitions, we started a Patreon to help us grow and to better support books by Asian and Asian American authors. We are offering 2 tiers for our Patreon. The first is our regular Boba member coming in at $3 a month, which will give you access to our brand new Books and Boba Discord server so you can engage with your fellow Books and Boba Club members and also Rira and myself in real time. This is where we'll be aiming to move the bulk of our book club discussions. But rest assured, we'll still have a presence on Goodreads as well. And our premium tier is our Honey Boba member tier coming in at $5 a month, where in addition to access to our Discord server, you'll also get access to our monthly Boba Chats, a bonus podcast where Rira and I and some guests will get together each month and have a more casual discussion on stuff that may or may not be book related, as well as answer some listener Q&A. Honey Boba members will also have access to a poll to help decide an official Books and Boba book pick once per quarter. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, support Books and Boba on Patreon by going to patreon.com/booksandboba. As always, Rira and I really appreciate your support. All right, thanks for listening, and I'm on with the show.
You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And hey, welcome to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yu.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And we are here for our March 2023 mid-month check-in, where we go over the latest Asian American book and publishing news. Rira, how have you been?
I mean, the Oscars happened this past weekend, and I feel great.
Yeah, we did good during the Oscars. We, the collective we, the Asian American, Asian diaspora community, celebrated, I guess, the first Best Picture win for like a specifically Asian American story about intergenerational child of immigrant trauma. That's pretty cool.
I mean, isn't Minari also like
Did that
Asian
win Best
American?
Picture?
No, it didn't, but it was nominated for like an
No,
Oscar.
but I'm saying this is our first win for that category, for the story,
okay.
Right?
Yes. I didn't know that I was gonna like cry like every so often because so many speeches were happening on the Oscar stage, and I was like, it's like, why are they so good with their speeches?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had a lot of time to prepare with their prolific run through awards season, and I'm already bracing myself for the inevitable think pieces of, are the Oscars too Asian now?
I mean, there's already like enough backlash already saying that the movie is overrated, or like, you know, it's like, oh, it's weird and it's there's too many Asians in it, or the reason why it's getting so much hype is because all the Asians are hyping it. And I'm like, okay, well, you do you, who cares?
I mean, it's only like one Best Picture film out of like the 92 years of Oscars. It's still just a drop in the bucket. And I guess it's not often a genre picture wins Best Picture. I know one of the articles that I read from the LA Times was a piece by Justin Chang saying that even though the film did a lot of things, at its core, it's still a Oscar baity family drama that doesn't really do much to shake up the formula. But to that I respond, so what? I mean, it's about time that this specific flavor of family drama won recognition, right?
Well, like, I feel like it explored a lot of things that you don't see about, like, intergenerational trauma, you know? Like, it was a very queer film as well, on top of it being Asian American. And I think, like, that's a very clear distinction to have, like, a relationship with an Asian immigrant parent and you being, like, a queer daughter. Like, that's a lot. And I just loved how, like, in the speeches, like Ki Hu Kwan talked about how, like, he, like, was one of the boat people, and, you know, to see him come this far, it, like, I know a lot of my Vietnamese American friends were, like, crying that night. And Michelle Yeoh saying, "Oh, this is for, like, the boys and girls who look like me." And I just, like, teared up because as someone who went to film school, like, I was one of the very few, like, Asian kids in my department. And to give context, the only Asian director that I knew was Ang Lee. And he had won Best Director back in, like, 2006, I think. So this is, like, before I went to college.
That
and
was
then
for
he won,
Brokeback, right?
Yeah. And then he won for the second time after I graduated. And he was the only Asian director to have won in that category or even to be nominated. So, like, not even with writing, okay? Writing is a department that I was studying in. So not a lot of role models unless you, like, look into Asia, okay? So to see, like, this influx of Asian American stories on screen, it's really wild to me.
Yeah. Well, once again, congratulations to the cast and crew of Everything Ever All at Once for their very successful awards run this season. But moving on from the land of film to the land of books, where we live. As always, every month we go over the latest Asian American book and publishing news. And this month, in addition to the new book deals, we'll also be catching up on all the Harper Collins book deals that we missed over the last few months due to the publisher strike over there. So that means we have an extra large publishing news segment for y'all. As always, thanks to Reba for putting this list together. So yeah, let's get started. Reba, what is our first book deal?
Our first book deal is for six figures. Spiegel and Grow bought North American rights to Julie Min's debut novel, Shanghailanders, at auction. The book is described as a kaleidoscopic work that follows a wealthy family in Shanghai moving back and forth in time between 2014 and 2040. It shifts perspectives to show how secrets both separate and unite a family, irrevocably affecting the lives they touch. Publication is set for spring 2024.
This sounds really interesting. It reminds me again of, like, those sweeping generational family dramas. Although 2014 2040 makes this more of a speculative type of fiction, right?
I wonder what our lives would be like in 2040. It sounds far away, but it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely closer than you think. And the fact that it follows a wealthy family in Shanghai is really interesting because Shanghai is a very metropolitan, globalized city where, like, a lot of the wealth in China is concentrated. And so there's really a lot you can do with exploring those themes. Our next deal, in a mid-six-figure deal, Fable and Friends have acquired North American rights to For Eids and the Funeral by Faridah, Àbíké-Íyímídé, and Adiba Jaigirdar. In this enemies-to-lovers rom-com, two Muslim teenagers must confront the events of past Eids that made and broke their relationship, and in the process get a second chance at love. Publication is planned for spring 2024.
Love more books about Eid. I feel like I've been seeing more books about Eid come out in the last, like, 2-3 years, which is great because as someone who grew up in a town where there weren't a lot of Muslims, like, I learned about it, like, after I moved to California. So I'm really glad that there's more out there. And of course, it being an enemies to lovers rom-com spices it up.
Yeah, rom-coms taking place in holidays is a well-loved trope. And I love that it's also play on, like, For Weddings and the Funeral.
Yeah.
It's
a clever title.
That's always fun, yeah.
All right, next up, Graydon House acquired North American rights to two books from Sophie Wan, including her debut novel, Woman of Good Fortune. Described as written in the vein of Counterfeit and Crazy Rich Asians, Women of Fortune is set against a high society Shanghai wedding and follows a reluctant bride and her two best friends. Each armed with their own personal motives and fed up with the way society treats women, the three women launch a heist to steal all the gift money on the big day. As the plot moves forward, the women reach a crossroads that may require the ultimate sacrifice, their friendship. Publication is scheduled for 2024.
This sounds like a lot of fun. It's a high story taking place in a fancy Chinese wedding. And you know, at these fancy Chinese weddings, those red envelopes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, that's just etiquette. You know, it kind of reminds me of Hustlers, because it was also a heist with a bunch of women who are stealing money from wealthy strip club patrons. But this time it's a wedding and it's high society, so it's like rich people who are not going to miss their money.
Yeah, and it sounds like as we get to the climax, we also get the classic heist plot point of once you get a hold of all this money, like who gets to walk away with it, right?
Okay, but like one of the three women is the reluctant bride. So technically it's not stealing because all of the money is for her wedding.
Well, I mean,
I guess she's stealing from her husband.
Yeah. I mean, it's implied that she's running away from the wedding. So yeah, it's. I'm assuming she's stealing from her husband and her husband's family and everyone else who's coming to the wedding and running away with her friends.
But I am all for the eat the rich types of storylines, and this sounds really fun.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Flatiron has bought Love Me Tomorrow, a new 2-book series by Tokyo After author Emiko Jean. Pitched as To All the Boys I've Loved Before, with a How I Met Your Mother speculative twist, it follows a 17-year-old girl who doesn't believe in love until she starts receiving letters from the love of her life, writing to her from years in the future. Publication is tentatively slated for winter 2025.
This reminds me of The Lake House, which was adapted from the Korean film Siwore, and that starred Lee Jung-jae and Chun Ji-yeon, who are like fucking superstars. Because it's a romance that takes place where like the two main characters are living 2 years apart in time, and they're able to like communicate through like a time capsule mailbox. So it kind of reminds me of that. Kind of reminds me of the manga series Orange, where the character gets letters from her future self. So like letters coming from the future, like time traveling letters is not anything new, but this sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's a love letter and it's being sent to like a teenager.
Yeah, I'm curious about the How I Met Your Mother twist. Like, I wonder if it's because the future suitor can't tell her who they are because it might affect them actually meeting in real life. I mean, I wonder if there is some sort of like bootstrap paradox type of time travel shenanigans going on here. That sounds really interesting. Excited to learn more.
All right. Well, congratulations again to Emiko Jean. We've had Emiko on our show twice, and I really like her books. So check those interviews out. All right, next up, Holiday House acquired world rights to The Gift of Eid by book blogger Shifa Saltagi. Hold on, I have to move this over. Okay, Shifa Saltagi Safadi. All right. Holiday House acquired world rights to The Gift of Eid by book blogger Shifa Saltagi Safadi and will be illustrated by Aaliya Jaleel. In the Syrian twist on O. Henry's The Gift of the Magi, set in Al-Hamidiyeh Souk and in the Umayyad Mosque of Damascus, Yasmin wants to buy her mother a beautiful mosaic box for her bracelet, but must give up something precious to raise the money. Publication is set for winter 2025.
You know, I don't think I've ever read or heard about The Gift of the Magi other than seeing it in like memes online. So all I know is it involves someone selling their hair.
Yeah. So it's about like a poor couple who want to buy secret Christmas gifts to each other. The woman has beautiful long hair and the husband has this gorgeous pocket watch. So the wife sells her hair to buy a chain for the pocket watch, and the husband sells the pocket watch to get like a beautiful hair comb, hair accessory for his wife. So
that sounds
it's a very
sad.
bittersweet story. I mean, it's sad, but also it's a story about like how much they're willing to sacrifice for their loved one to give something special. So it is like one of my favorite short stories that I've read in like middle school, I think. So it's nice that we're getting like a Syrian twist on the story.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't involve that sort of like Pyrrhic victory as in the original story. I hope it's a little bit more sweet in this one.
Yeah. And like I said, love the fact that we're getting more books on Eid.
Yeah. All right. Our next deal. Inkyard Press acquired Tashie Bhuiyan's Stay With My Heart, a YA contemporary novel about a girl who dreams of working in the music industry. But when she accidentally sabotages an up-and-coming local band, she falls for the enigmatic leader while secretly trying to make up for her mistake. Publication is planned for winter 2024.
Ooh, that's rough.
I can't tell if this is a rom-com or not. This could have like two very different vibes, depending on whether or not like what type of character this enigmatic leader is.
I'm just curious, what does she do to sabotage an up-and-coming local band? I mean, there's a lot of possibilities.
There are many ways to sabotage or to not even sabotage, but like mess up someone's set, either through scheduling or not scheduling, or even like technically like not ordering the right equipment or giving the wrong instructions to contractors. As someone who used to work with many
I was about to
bands,
say,
there are several ways.
I was about to say, like, are these nightmares that you've had as a former collaboration?
These are fires that I may or may not have had to put out constantly in my like 6-year career producing live music events.
But congratulations to Tashie. This sounds really funny, and I am really curious. You've piqued my interest. Next up, Viz Originals bought the debut YA manga series Champion of the Rose from Filipino duo Kat Aquino and Dominique Duran. In the first volume of this anti-imperialist fantasy series, a tournament is fought for Princess Rosa's hand in marriage, and she strikes a deal with swordsman Ray. Help her win her own hand, and he'll earn his freedom to return home. Publication of the first volume is slated for fall 2024.
I'm curious because of like, I'm not entirely clear what the classification is, but what makes this a manga series as opposed to like a graphic novel or comic book series? Is it the way that it's drawn, or is it because of the way it's read? Like, is it read like a manga from right to left? Like, these are the questions I have, but also this sounds really interesting and cool.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, it is a question of what is the difference between a graphic novel and a manga. Obviously, they have different styles. Mangas usually are black and white, and the paneling is completely different. But yeah, like it's interesting because it's an English language manga, and we don't really see that because mangas are usually Japanese and then they're translated.
Yeah. Also, manga is just the Japanese word for comic. So it's true. If, say, we get a book by a Spanish author and we call it a libro, does that make it not a book? But I guess we're just being over extra in our semantics right now. But it's cool.
But the publisher is Viz Originals.
Yeah.
So Viz Media, it mainly dabbles in Japanese comics. So that is why I'm like, like what is the style gonna be?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you think about it, manga and comics invoke different vibes and have different styles. So I'm guessing that's where the delineation is here. But yeah, the project sounds really cool. Always love to see more diverse stories. And, manga doesn't have to be written by Japanese people to be manga. All right, next up, Clarion Books bought Kindling by National Book Award winner Traci Chee. A YA reimagining of Seven Samurai. The book is set against a war-ravaged fantasy world where kindling warfare, the use of elite magic-wielding teenage soldiers, has been outlawed. 7 kindlings search for purpose and identity as they prepare for one final battle. Publication is slated for winter 2024.
Yo, 7 Samurai. This sounds badass.
Speaking of like super anime / manga style stories, this screams like anime manga to me. Like child soldiers, searching for purpose and dreams, Also, Seven Samurai, the basis of a lot of really cool stories.
Yeah. Like you said, it does very much remind me of anime tropes. And maybe that's why I'm very excited.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Harper Alley acquired at auction North American rights to Copycat by Elyse Martin and Sean Rubin. Set during the golden age of manuscript illumination in medieval Britain, this middle-grade graphic novel follows a 12-year-old orphan who avoids getting caught stealing a box of jewels by disguising herself as a monk in training at the local abbey. There she learns how to be a scribe and discovers that art and community may be worth more than gold. Publication is scheduled for fall 2024.
This sounds super interesting. I recently learned about the art and industry of illumination in medieval Europe through playing a game on my Xbox called Pentiment, which is like a adventure murder mystery game set in like the late Middle Ages. So I'm very excited to see.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that game. Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see that knowledge be applied now in our book news by saying, I know what illumination is.
Meanwhile, I learned about illumination from my Byzantine art history classes. Yeah, but this sounds really cool. I think because this is a graphic novel, I'm sure like the art in the manuscript illumination style is going to be really gorgeous. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Our next deal, Lerner Millbrook acquired world rights to Kaho'olawe by Kamalani Hurley and illustrated by Harinani and Orme. This nonfiction picture book chronicles the history of the island of Kaho'olawe, from the arrival of the first Polynesian voyagers to the island's seizure by the U.S. military during World War II, to present-day restoration efforts by native Hawaiians. Publication is set for fall 2024.
Yay, more books by Pacific Islanders.
Yeah. And yay, more picture books for kids to teach them about the history of the Hawaiian Islands and America's, I guess, imperialist history there. This book surely will not be banned in the South anytime soon.
Oh my gosh. All right, next up, Zando Young Readers and Gillian Flynn Books won at auction debut author Wen-yi Lee's The Dark We Know. Pitched as Stephen King's It meets Rory Power's Wilder Girls, the book is the first YA title from the Gillian Flynn Books imprint. Forced to return home for her abusive father's funeral, a bisexual Chinese-American art student must team up with her last surviving childhood friend to destroy the evil that has been lurking in her town and refuses to let her escape twice. Publication is set for spring 2024.
This sounds pretty, it sounds cool, but also it traumatized me, like the original TV miniseries traumatized me as a child. So I don't know how I feel about.
Oh, you mean It? Yeah.
Yeah. But this does sound really interesting. The exploring the dark side of, children of immigrant upbringings, and using that as like a horror allegory sounds really cool to me.
Yeah, and Gillian Flynn is the author of Gone Girl and Sharp Objects. So her imprint is, all about the creepy thriller, chill down your spine type of books. So
Yeah.
I am excited to read this. I am also kind of a coward, so I would have to like swallow my fear. As long as it's not a clown, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Or a doll.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, like, I'm imagining something like, there's nothing more scary than not only like being abused as a child, but it being normalized within your community, right? And that's something that I think is very present, especially in Asian enclaves. So yeah, it sounds terrifying, but also really interesting as well.
The Dark We Know. Yes.
Okay, next up, Living Corridor Bot, And Then Comes July by Sarah Jung, a contemporary YA graphic novel that explores two sisters' relationships as they are escaping an unsafe home environment and their respective immigrant identities. Publication is slated for spring 2025. I feel like this book is like of a theme from the last one, right? Like just reading that description, I can get a sense of what the underlying themes are.
Yeah, it's nice that we are getting more young adult books that explores themes like escaping abusive homes and dealing with abusive parents. Like, I feel like it's a type of story that we've kind of seen in the fringes, but like to have it like front and center, it's really nice to see that representation. All right, next up, Harper Collins acquired in a preempt world rights to Ninya Mata's author-illustrator debut picture book, New. Based on Mata's own experience, the book follows a Filipina girl on her first days of school in America as she navigates her particular encounter with newness through a universal lens. Publication is planned for summer 2025. Ooh,
Yeah.
First day of going to a new school. That's rough. It's rough for any kid.
Yeah.
It's rougher for a kid who is moving across the ocean.
Yeah, we can never have enough books to explore this because it is, we are still a country of immigrants and there's still new immigrants coming all the time. So having books like this will always be important for kids growing up, especially in our country.
Yeah, being the new kid sucks.
I never actually had to deal with that.
I've had
surprisingly
to
enough.
move quite a number of times, even when I did live in the same state. So, yeah, going through that phase is rough, especially when you're like an extreme introvert like me. So it's very hard to make friends. And I don't really remember all that much like moving from Korea to America and attending like school with a bunch of like non-Koreans for the first time. But I do remember like my parents like not understanding some of the school culture, being like, why are they doing it like this? Like, why? It's like, why do you have like a day off here? Like, why is PE formatted this way? So it's just as confusing for immigrant parents as it is for the immigrant kid who is new to school. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Next up, Harper Teen bought world rights to Better Catch Up Krishna Kumar by Anahita Karthik. The debut YA rom-com follows Krishna on a road trip across India to find her summertime crush after discovering he's left her the flirty text she's been dreaming of the night before she's set to return to America. Publication is scheduled for 2025. Yeah, this really reminds me of like those early 2000s teen movies. Specifically, I'm thinking of Road Trip, which is a film about a road trip where a group of college kids have to drive across the country to intercept a accidental sex tape that the main character mailed to his girlfriend. I'm sure the film has not aged well, but the story sounds like a kind of a more wholesome version of that.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of a different road trip film. It's actually apocalyptic. It's called Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. It starred Steve Carell and Keira Knightley. So it kind of reminds me of that, an epic road trip for love. And I'm just thinking, road trip across India. That sounds very difficult. Because like here in America, like the freeway system is, I mean, as much as I hate driving, like it is very easy to do a road trip across America. I don't know the geography and infrastructure of India that well, but it does sound like India is huge too. So
Yeah, India big,
I wonder.
but I think once you get out of the metropolitan areas, I'm sure it's just open road, right?
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, again, I've never been to India as well, so we can explore together with this book.
Yes, road trip. The road trip genre is great.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Zando Young Readers and Sweet July Books won at auction Roselle Lim's YA debut, Celestial Banquet. Pitched as Iron Chef meets lore, the book is set in a Chinese folklore-inspired world in which minor deities walk among us and follows a hot-headed noodled chef who competes to create a feast for the gods while battling monsters, cutthroat gourmands, and her own heart. Publication is slated for January 2025.
You had
Roselle
me at Iron
Lim
Chef meets Chinese folklore. This reminds me of, have you ever seen the Stephen Chow film, God of Cookery or God of Cooking? I don't know what the English name for it is, but the Chinese name is pretty much God of Cooking.
I've never heard of it, but
it's great.
I mean, it sounds great. Roselle Lim is the author of Natalie Tan's book of Luck and Fortune. So she is very familiar with writing books where it's centered around food and magic. So this is very much her brand. And I feel like it's very charming.
It sounds like a lot of fun. Obviously, a lot of food and food descriptions, which is always great. My favorite trope of Asian and Asian American literature. Always love exploring the Chinese pantheon and love cooking competition shows. Very excited. Top Chef's back on the air right now. So yeah, this sounds right on my alley. Really excited about learning more about this book in the coming years. 2025, so far away though.
But it's January 2025, though.
Yeah, but there's a whole presidential election between now and then, and it's just seems so far away.
True.
All right. Next up, Inkyard Press has bought No Place Like Home by Lin S. Win, a middle-grade portal fantasy about Lan, an 11-year-old recent immigrant to Canada from Vietnam, who falls into the pages of her latest read and learns she is a budding witch. Publication is planned for fall 2023. Portal
is this
fantasy
an isekai book?
Yeah, is that the Western equivalent of isekai?
I think so. I mean, I'm sure if you say isekai to people, they probably don't know what it is. So I guess that is a way to translate.
I guess I'm the opposite. I'm like, portal fantasy. What is that? Is that isekai?
I mean, when it said portal fantasy, I thought about the video game Portal because that's just where my nerdy brain went. But then as soon as it said falls into the pages of her latest read, I'm like, isekai. Love that genre.
I feel like we just outed ourselves as enjoyers of trashy manga anime.
You say that, but there are some really good isekai stuff out there. What is it? Oh, shoot. What am I reading right now? That's one isekai series that I'm reading right now is The First Night with the Duke on Webtoon, and it is fantastic. So I don't know what you're saying, Marvin. There's some good isekai stuff out there.
I'm not saying trash is bad. I'm just saying it's a very. I've read many of isekai story especially during the pandemic when I had nothing else better to do. So I'm excited to see more stories like that in the mainstream. I mean, technically, these are also classic tropes, right? Alice in Wonderland is probably the classic Western isekai.
True. And I'm interested in what kind of witch Lan is. Is this a Vietnamese type of witch? Or is it more of a traditional Western type of witch?
Yeah.
Very curious. All right, next up, Little Brown Bot I Lived Inside a Whale, a whimsical picture book debut by Shin Lee about finding your own voice and learning how to connect with others. Publication is set for winter 2024.
Very
Not
curious
much to go on
about how this child or how this person ended up inside a whale. Is this a Pinocchio situation? Or
not enough information to come up with a conclusion. But I love the message about finding your own voice and being a better communicator. Yeah. I am curious, like Marvin said, how did this kid end up inside a whale?
All right. Next up, Paul Wiseman Books bought world rights to Sandhya Uchariya's Living Bridges, a picture book set in the mountains of Meghalaya, India, where one generation teaches the next how to weave the roots of their beloved Jinkyandri, which are ancient man-made bridges made of living tree roots. The book will be illustrated by Avani Dovedi, and publication is slated for spring 2025.
So these Jinkyandris are pretty cool looking if you Google it. It actually reminds me a lot of Lord of the Rings, because I am a nerd and the wood elves have wooden bridges like this.
This totally looks like something elves would make in Tolkien's Middle-earth.
Well, there's a very big portion of the story where during the last alliance, the wood elves, they pass their armies through a wooden bridge. And after the battle is done, they're so traumatized that they destroy the bridge and become very isolated from the world. So, so it reminds me a lot of that. And it's just, there's something really magical about these bridges. They look beautiful. Yeah,
they look really, really cool. And I'm sure seeing a picture book form will be really cool too.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to how they make these bridges. How long does it take? because you have to like wait for the roots to grow.
Yeah.
A lot of questions, but it sounds pretty cool. All right, next up, Harper Collins bought world rights to Do You Even Know Me by Amira's Picture Day author Reem Faruqi, in which Salma hears the word Muslim over and over again on TV, and she worries, especially when she gets picked on at school. But she learns to speak up and live up to her name, which means peace. Ani Bushri will illustrate, and publication is planned for spring 2024.
Yeah, this sounds like a really great picture book to teach kids to not believe everything they see on TV and media. For the same reason why we say representation matters. We say that because what gets represented on TV becomes the basis of how someone might think of people that they aren't familiar with. And to be able to approach that a little bit more critically and a little bit more thoughtfully, I think is really important because of how media is distributed these days through, TV, social media, streaming.
Yeah, I love the title, Do You Even Know Me? And I just feel like it's such a powerful title because a lot of people just assume, I feel like there's a lot of assumptions towards Muslims because of 9/11, obviously, and there's a lot of, Islamophobia that has grown since then, and a lot of the conservative media, they twist things. So it's just do you even know me? Do you even know my culture? Who are you to judge me like this? So I feel like it is a very relatable story, and also just how during this pandemic, we've had a lot of anti-Asian hate crimes that have happened, and how that's affected kids at school. It's really sad, and it's just nice that there is a picture book that is diving into the implications of that. And, maybe bullying is bad. Maybe parents should be more sensitive and teach their kids to be more empathetic and to not judge just based on the color of someone's skin or their background, their ethnic background. So yeah, congratulations to Reem Faruqi.
All right, our last book deal. In a 6-figure deal, Del Rey Books preempted world English rights to Samantha Sato-Yambao's Water Moon. Pitched as Erin Morgenstern meets Studio Ghibli, the book follows a woman who inherits a pawn shop in Tokyo where you can sell your regrets. Water Moon is set to be released in fall 2024 or spring 2025.
Wow, this sounds super Japanese.
It reminds me of what was that book we read about the coffee shop where you can go back in time? Kind of
before the coffee gets cold?
Yeah, kind of in that vein, kind of a magically realistic place where you have a rotating clientele of people who just want to, in this case, sell their regrets, which, sounds, as you get older and your regrets pile up, sounds pretty like a pretty sweet deal if I can get money for everything I've regretted in my life.
Yeah, and this also reminds me of the manga series XXXholic by Clamp, because it also is an antique shop / pawn shop where magical things are exchanged. And it's kind of like Monkey's Paw, whatever you give up to the store, whatever you want from the store has a price, and therefore there's a bit of an equivalent exchange. So it kind of reminds me of that. It also kind of reminds me of what I wrote for my college application creative writing portfolio. Yeah, it's definitely a trope that I really love. So yeah. I am excited to read this. Any book that has a Studio Ghibli description attached to it, I'm yep, automatically putting that in my TBR pile.
Yeah, sounds like some good vibes. And that'll do it for our publication news roundup. Next up, we have just a quick check-in with book news. Rira, what's our story?
So Y'all West Book Festival announced their schedule. The festival is going to take place on April 29th at Santa Monica High School. It's great that we're having book festivals live in person again. This is one of the biggest book festivals in America. And some Asian authors that I've noticed on their roster are Chloe Gong, Maureen Gu, Melissa De La Cruz, Sarah Kuhn, Marie Liu, Tahereh Mafi, Reem Shukari, and David Yoon. We've had a bunch of these authors on our show before, and it's great that all of them are going to be at this festival for you guys to meet if you guys are local.
Yeah. And this is a free event, right?
I think so. I think it is free. But I think there are panels where you do have to reserve tickets. It's been a while since I've been to Y'all West. It's been a number of years. I don't know if things have changed or not.
Yeah, and it's a bummer because I would have loved to have attended this year, but I'm having my delayed wedding reception that day, and Rira is actually also coming because she's invited. So looks like y'all have to party without us there, but maybe next year. Maybe next year we can go to Y'all West.
Yeah, or another book festival. I don't know. We just have to. We need to be more social, you know.
We too, and we've been making plans. Like Rira and I have been planning what the next phase of Books and Boba will look like. And I think we'll be ready to share that relatively soon. So stay tuned for that. But with that, that'll do it for our mid-month check-in for March 2023. If there's any book or publication news that we missed on this episode, please let us know on our Goodreads forums or on social media. And we'll definitely try to circle back in next month's check-in. As always, we love it when our members interact with us and engage with us. It really makes us feel like we're part of a real book club. But before we go, Ribra, can you remind us what we are reading for book club this month?
Yes, we are reading Front Desk by Kelly Yang. And it is really interesting that we are reading this book amidst so many book ban campaigns. And
yeah, I mean, longtime listeners or followers of the Asian American publication space would know that Front Desk was and is one of the flashpoints of the book ban, epidemic going around the country right now. It was one of the first books to be banned for nothing reasons, and I'm excited to finally get the chance to read Kelly Yang's book to see what all the hubbub's about. So yeah, we hope you read along with us. If you've already finished the book and have thoughts to share, please let us know on Goodreads, and we'll do our best to share your feedback on our discussion episode as well. But with that, that'll do it for this episode of Books and Boba. Thank you so much for checking in with us, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.
All right, bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Rira Yu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, you can support Books and Boba and Asian American authors by purchasing books at our bookshop.org account. Check out the link in our show notes and also at booksandboba.com. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Sharon.
Hey, Raman.
How are folks still racist?
I know, right? We're like 2 decades into the 21st century.
Yeah, and second question, where's my jetpack?
Well, I can't help you there, but have I got a podcast for you. Modern Minorities is a show where each week my longtime pal Raman and I uncover common and uncommon truths that we all need to hear for our majority brains and ears.
Yeah, Sharon and I have spoken to doctors, lawyers, directors, climate activists, angry Asians, athletes, chefs, writers.
Folks who are Black, brown, gay, straight, and everything in between.
Past guests have included comedian Margaret Cho, Southern Poverty Law Center journalist Geraldine Mariba, comics creator Jean-Lun Yang, and many, many more.
We've even talked about Ramadan, Black History Month, Kamala Khan, and Robin being queer.
It's like we're trying to solve racism with the podcast.
Challenge accepted.
So check out Modern Minorities at modmypod.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Remember, we're all modern minorities, but we're no one's model minority.